I'll kick off. Let's see. Are we having, let's see. Is it already recording, maybe?
Yep.
Yes, it's already recording.
Oh, very good. Okay, sorry about that. I for some reason, I don't see it. Oh, there it is on my phone, but I don't see it on my laptop. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. Hope you're having a great week of celebrating Diwali and the celebration part of light over darkness. You know, we here, all of us in the world, every corner of the world, generally we're often challenged by darkness in our own personal lives, but also in our neighborhoods and in our regions. And I think today's world is particularly challenged. COVID took us to a dark place and we survived. The geopolitics of today are taking us to some dark places, and I know that we'll survive as well because the human race, despite our frailties, figures out some way for the good to win. And so let's continue to shine our lights and continue to make the impacts, hopefully, that all of us are making. We have a great conversation today about China. China has evolved over centuries, many centuries, and all of us are fascinated by China and its intricacies and complexities and opportunity. And today's conversation will be about that. What are the opportunities? What are we seeing in China? When we'll love to hear from all of your perspectives. Our keynote speaker is coming into the room in a moment, Arnold Ma, and I'll save the introduction for a moment. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce a few people just for some quick introductions. And Bill Edwards is someone who has lived in China, has 50 years of international trade experience. He's got that experience over a variety of market segments. And he is the #1 expert in the world on international franchising. He's based in Southern California, and he's on the Global Chamber Los Angeles Advisory Board. Bill, could you just say hi and introduce yourself and maybe any perspective that you might share on China?
Well, thank you, Doug. Yeah, I lived in China in the early 80s in the oil business and then got sucked back into it in the mid 90s and have been involved ever since. As I was telling Tom earlier, I prior to COVID, I was there several times a year, and I still don't know really much about China. It's such a continually changing place and diverse place, right, William? It's extremely diverse country that people don't realize that. They think about China. Well, there's a lot of Chinas, okay? It's a fascinating place. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Mark Cohen also, and in fact, very deeply has extremely extreme success in building a business in China. Bill or Mark, that was a key part of your initial success in business, a U.S. business and U.S. businesses being successful in China. You are someone who helps people get to the next level in many ways. And so thank you for all the good work that you do and today in supporting people. I know part of that also is building off the legacy relationships and success you've had in China. Would you like to say anything about your background and also any comments about China, please?
Thank you again. Thank you for everybody to be on the call. Like Bill, I agree with Bill 100%. We are in a changing dynamics today of the world. We are looking for, it goes back to my legacy where in the early 80s, I went over to China and I sold my business to the Chinese government through Hong Kong. And I believe that today, like anything else, it's connection. It's really taking the time and getting to know a particular person or carrier in which country you're going to go into. China is looking for opportunities too. they're just really, really cautious. And if you play that game, and it's not a game, but if you play that dynamics with people, we'll be able to do business with everybody. So it's really more like everybody thinks, oh, they're so big and they're a threat. Nobody is a threat. The only threat there is in our own mind of how to do business together with people. And it goes back to that same old tradition of life. All we want to do is connect, do business, good business, because everybody at the end of the day are good people. So that's how I have always lived my life. I've always connected with great people, and sometimes they're not great people, but we will know. Everybody shows their colors eventually. So at the end of the day, here's 40 years. I'm the same guy that I was 40 years ago. I just learned more with all the lessons that we go through in life. Is all we're trying to do is do good business, and at the end of the day, for humanity. So that's my little speech, but I really play the same thing all the time with the dynamics of people. So everybody wants to do good, and that's what we're trying to do, Bill. Great seeing you again, Bill. It's been a while that I've connected with you, but Doug, thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking to learn, and we're looking to see how we can all do business great.
Thank you very much. We're just going around the room for some key introductions while Arnold Ma, our keynote speaker today, joins the room. Catherine Reed is also someone with deep experience in China. And Catherine, I love your posts, all of your posts on LinkedIn. If any of you are not yet connected to Catherine, you should be. She's also probably the most aligned person for the topic today around the consumer market. She's an expert on that as well, based out of Austria. Catherine, thank you for your longtime support and collaboration and membership with Global Chamber. Sorry to put you on the spot here, but would you mind just saying hi to everybody and any introductory comments you'd like to make on China?
Sure, it's great to get the opportunity to say hi, and it's always good to be in a room with a lot of other people who are open to, let's say, talking as objectively as possible about the pros and cons of doing business in China. I came back from China, I'm going to say like third week of September. I was over there for a couple of weeks, actually, for a vacation. And it's always interesting to see how the consumer market is changing. There's a lot of negativity that I'm hearing right now from Chinese friends, a lot of pessimism about how it's very difficult to do business right now. But I think that for branded products in consumer niches, as long as you do the research and you take the time to make sure that you're working with the right partners, then there are still great opportunities in China. But it's not roads are paved with gold kind of situation anymore, because those days are long gone. So yeah, it's still a fun place to do business though, if you know the way to go about doing things and take the time to make sure you've got the right partners. I think that's key.
What is it that's driving that change?
I think that one of the things has been that a lot of companies just assumed that that kind of eternal growth would go on. And of course, with the real estate markets really slowing down, people forget the real estate market makes up something like 25% of the Chinese economy. So when that starts to go south with Evergrande and all the struggles of Wanda and so on, then it makes things tough. Youth unemployment is almost at 20%. There are a lot of weaknesses in the Chinese economy, but there are signs out there that I would say that in some parts, in certain niches, that there are businesses that are still doing well, especially in luxury or premium branded products. What's not doing well are the kind of middle of the road options that don't have any true differentiating features, I would say. And cheap options, none of us need to go to China with cheap options, because none of us are cheap enough to compete with China on cheap.
So it's really more of an economic challenge right now. The consumer dollars are less. So that eternal growth right now is a bit of a pause or slowdown.
I think so. Yeah, and of course, people are worried about the geopolitical situation. People are on edge as to what's going to happen next week in the States, and how that might also translate into a more challenging environment for Chinese businesses.
I can say
Do
that
business internationally. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
it really, I think it's a really great perspective. One of the most respected people for me is Dr. Sanjeev Kagram, who left Thunderbird this year, and now he's joining Global Chamber and leading a global council that we're forming in January. And of all of the concerns he has, the geopolitics and the world's relationship with China is one of the top ones. In building the Global Chamber Council in January, we've been very careful, I think, in selecting some very global business superstars, and the one for China, which we'll announce soon, will be the co-chair. So it's a woman based in Shanghai who is very top business leader, who will be a co-chair with Dr. Kagram for this council. And we selected her for two, maybe three reasons. Number one, most important, she's amazing, and her connections are very deep in China. Number two, she's a woman, and we want to have gender balance on our council. And Dr. Kagram and I feel very strongly about that across the world. And then number three, the geopolitics right now, I think, demand or in my opinion, of course, is that trade is important, and that trade often trumps, no pun intended, politics. And so when bad politics happen, often trade can counteract that in a very positive way. And so our hope and expectation is that despite both U.S. parties wanting to chill things with China, that we'll continue to push forward that trade is good, and that we want to do trade with China, we collectively, all of us, and because it's a good thing to do. Before I introduce Arnold, Arnold has come on. Hi, Arnold, welcome. We're just about to start. And before we do, I wanted to make sure, given the mention of Dr. Kagram, I also introduce William Zhu, who collectively, before we started recording, I had introduced to some of you, but he has been part of Thunderbird. He's also a global business leader, and as a Thunderbird graduate, and very deeply connected across China in the business community, not just the Thunderbird community. He's got some really powerful and important insights on what's happening in China. William, hi, welcome. And it was great to meet you in LA as you were headed back to Shanghai recently. Could you just briefly introduce yourself and say hi before we get going?
Yep. Thank you, Doug, and hello to everyone around the world. My name is William Zhu. I was born and raised in southern China, Guangzhou, and studied at ASU for mechanical engineering, and then had my business in the state in Phoenix for a couple of years before I attended Thunderbird for my master. So I graduated from Thunderbird with a degree in Master of Global Management in 2021. And after I graduated, I was the general manager for Thunderbird China office. So I was responsible for Thunderbird's all operations in China, as well as managing the alum relationship and all our chapters within China. So I think it was a really good opportunity. Thanks to the school, I was, really well connected in the alum community, was able to meet with a lot of very senior business people. Thunderbird do have a very strong alum network in China, many top company CEOs in Shanghai, a lot of entrepreneurs in southern China. So it's a great network for us. And also, I was very well connected in the business world. So I recently left this position and now very back to my own business. I'm very focused on international trade. Obviously, was really great to meet with Doug. I think Global Chamber is a perfect network, perfect platform for me to, get to know more people, learn more knowledge about global trade. So very happy to be here, get to know everybody, and, happy to share everything that I know. Thank you.
Very good. It was a pleasure and looking forward to working with you at Global Chamber. And we actually had Japanese noodles when you were visiting, and that's always a pleasure to be connected in a global way, in every way, including food. Arnold Ma knows China. He also knows food, I'll bet, and not just on the how to sell food, but he is based in London, but his offices are in Shanghai and in London. He is dedicated to opening the world to China, and we really appreciate, Arnold, that perspective that you have, and you've teamed that up with expertise and connections. And so thank you for your leadership and helping so many important companies be successful in China. Many companies, including Harrods and Sony and Manchester United and Häagen-Dazs and many others that are not only known brands, but many probably we haven't heard of, but they've been successful nonetheless. You're a speaker and a writer and a podcast host. You've got over or about 60,000 connections in LinkedIn. Congratulations. So, not necessarily a China platform at all, and yet the world has flocked to you even on LinkedIn. Undoubtedly on many other platforms, including WeChat, you're deeply connected. I'm trying to recover my WeChat account, so I don't know for sure. You're the founder of Qumin, which is a digital agency which has those two offices. You are an expert on understanding the Chinese market, and you're one of those rare people that not only can understand the market, but by looking at what a company has and the products it has, then to tailor what they have for that market, and that's an art. So thank you for having that art and creating so much success and being such an advocate for trade. Please correct if I've made any blunders in the introduction to you, but we'd love to hear your perspectives on what's going on in China, and then of course understanding a little bit more about you along the way so that we can all benefit. Arnold, thank you for speaking today at Global Chamber.
Thank you, Doug, for the introduction. No, you've got it spot on. I'm a big food guy. I love food. So I don't know if I can sell food, but I can definitely eat a lot of food. If we ever get the opportunity to do that, I think I would love to do that in Shanghai. Yeah. Do you want me to get started now, or should we wait until later?
Oh, please go ahead. Yeah, we'd love to hear your perspectives.
Okay, maybe I'll just introduce a quick few points that I've come across recently, and then anyone can ask me some questions if they feel like they want me to expand on anything. I think the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is the perception that it's difficult. I mean, I think the global economy is pretty bad right now, and the same as China, right? China's economy is similar to the rest of the world. It's not in the best of positions, but there's still a lot of industries that are still doing very well in China. So there's plenty of opportunities. I think for me, and for what we're doing at the moment, one of the big opportunity we're seeing is still like social media and live streaming on social media. So Little Red Book is a platform that a lot of brands are probably not looking at enough. So I want to talk a few about these platforms. So one is Douyin that we're very bullish on. I think it's fantastic for brand awareness, and it's also really good for certain types of brands when you do live stream and live selling. Xiaohongshu likewise as well. It's not as kind of like powerful as Douyin for brand awareness, for initial traction where you're starting from zero, but it's still very powerful nonetheless, especially among female audiences. WeChat is more of a social CRM, so we tend to use that for one-to-many communication between brands and audiences. But the biggest opportunity we're seeing right now, we think like Little Red Book, live streaming and social selling is really strong right now. And we probably have about a 2 to 3 year timeline on that to be able to take advantage of that opportunity, or like leverage that opportunity to try and get as much revenue and return as possible versus investment. A couple of categories I think are really powerful on Little Red Book live streaming. I think one is beauty and skincare. I think is super strong right now. Again, like for a female-oriented platform, I think that's where a lot of people are purchasing, where you can actually start a live streaming room and sell a lot of products, even if you don't have a very strong brand. Another category, female fashion, is also doing really well. And finally, which might be a little bit surprising, is like the snacks industry. So like small snacks, like food, foreign brands like chocolates and cookies, anything that isn't immediately perishable. So those are also really good. And all of those categories, I actually think, from my experience and our partners, that the kind of FMCG snacks are probably the best one because it has the lowest return rate of all the different categories. Beauty and skincare has slightly higher return rate, and fashion, of course, has the most return rate because of like the fit and people changing sizes and returning and realizing it doesn't fit and stuff like that. So I think investment in live streaming and social selling is probably the best thing that you can do in China right now, in a sense that, but also like investment that you're not just paying someone else to do live streams. You can do that as part of your strategy, but I think certain like mature brands or people that have a bit more resources in China should really just invest in their own in-house live streamers that they own and they can control. Control not in a bad way, but in a good way, where you can control the messaging, control the timing, the pricing, and so on and so forth. So have like a holistic internal and external live streaming strategy on places like Xiaohongshu is where I would spend my money if I had a brand. Super powerful. And you really want to complement that if you're serious about China with some brand awareness stuff on Douyin. So Douyin, as I said earlier, for me is like the best platform, the single best platform for awareness. I don't know if we have time. I'm going to quickly brief talk about kind of Douyin as well as a platform. It's like, I mean, TikTok, right? Chinese TikTok is basically Douyin, or Western Douyin is like Chinese TikTok. It's really good. It's still very content oriented, so you don't need. It's not a network based social media platform. I always call it like third gen social. So it's based on like algorithmic distribution of the content. So you don't need a follower to gain loads of traction on piece of content. Every piece of content pretty much is distributed through kind of like a ripple effect, where you see the content initial set of audiences. If they pass a certain level, it gets rippled out to the next set and then rippled out to the next set, and they get exponentially bigger as you pass each content, audience group. And that happens for pretty much every piece of content, regardless how many followers you got. Obviously, the more followers you have, the easier it is for you to pass a certain ripples of each level. But it's not to say it's not possible for you to do that if you have no content. Like our channel, so we run a fashion channel on Douyin and Xiaohongshu and a few other Chinese and Western platforms. We have about 2 million followers, 20 million views per week. We started that channel with 0 followers, and one piece of content went viral overnight, and we gained like 40,000 followers on Douyin literally overnight. So like we know it's possible, and we know it can happen. So and Douyin is also a platform I think that just gets overlooked a lot, because people feel like it's a little bit tacky, I guess is the word. But you see people like Tiffany and Chanel, like these guys are on Douyin now. So it's gone past that level. And I think a lot of people still overlook the platform for really strong brand awareness. So, I mean, yeah, in terms of China and investment, if you're a beauty and skincare brand, like if you're a female fashion brand or even like a male fashion brand, if you're like a a snacks brand, that's long shelf snacks, FMCG style like snacks brand, you should definitely be looking at China, looking at live streaming, having internal external strategy, having a Douyin strategy for awareness to complement that social selling, so you can drive even more ROI on your investment is super powerful right now. Yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Mainly focus on social media because that's what we do and that's what we know. But I'm happy to really answer any questions on any other areas as well.
Fascinating. Could you maybe provide some insights on some of the projects that you've been working on, and then what are some of the things that kind of are current and some things that maybe you would want to be working on, given your expertise and your interests?
Yeah, sure. So I'm wearing them now. It's a brand called Viore. I don't know if anyone's heard of the audience. It's a athleisure brand started in California in America. They've been going around. quite well. But we basically started from scratch with them on Chinese social media. So Douyin, Little Red Book, doing kind of like a strategy that we've always wanted to do called 666. 666 in Chinese is very different to the meaning in the West. It's not the sign of the devil. So it's like a gaming vernacular where if you do something good, people like spam sixes. It's kind of like 666, as in like, you know, something's going really well. Something's really cool, for example. So it's named after like an internet vernacular. But what we do is we tend to, best way to explain it is kind of like a production model where we work with creators on behalf of the brands to produce kind of like for us, by us content. So let's say the brand is focused on basketball or surfing, for example. Surfing may be a better example. Like you can never find an agency or brand that's like actually full of surfers and live and breathe surfing every single day of the week. But there are people out there that do that, right? So instead of us trying to create content that's almost a little bit inauthentic, we go to the creators and we commission to create content on behalf of the brand that live on the brand channels. And this way, the content is super authentic, is from the surfers, is for the surfers. And then the brand serves as a platform to uplift the voice of the community and the audience they're trying to reach and trying to interact with, rather than like fake kind of like surfing content, like highly produced stuff that seems inauthentic, that doesn't really hit home with the people who live and breathe the subculture and the hobby. So you can kind of think of it like a traditional broadcasting model, whereas a TV channel might not produce all of the content that they broadcast, but all the content they broadcast, if it's a top TV channel, should be really amazing, and it could be done by a production house. So we normally use people for their authenticity within the subculture and the hobby, rather than how many followers they have. Because we also have this thing, we feel like creators are different to influencers. Like these days, I think the word influence gets thrown around a lot. It gets thrown around a lot about how people people taking photos in front of like, I don't know, like a surf shop. They're suddenly an influencer because they're good looking like a guy or a girl. They're not really a surfer. So we'll go to an actual surfer who lives and breathes that subculture to produce content for the brand. And we found that worked really well. So we've built like really strong audiences, really strong followings with really authentic content without having to pretend to know something we don't. And then we use creator tools to boost those content, to amplify that content. Because when the content is good, it's really easy to gain traction on it. You just need to give it a little boost. So it's a really effective way of building brand awareness amongst certain target audience. And we have about 10,000 creators now we built over the last kind of like couple of years. So that's something new that we've been doing and been working really well. The kind of stuff that we would love to do in the future, we're primarily a social media and content agency. So we own our own channels, we manage channels for clients. We generally want to focus on fashion retail, luxury beauty, yeah, those are kind of, I guess, like the main categories and main types of work that we generally do for clients.
Okay. Well, Viore, I guess you're tying that into the surfer kind of culture, and is that, or because certainly in the US when they advertise, everything is right on the beach and they have, you know, women and men kind of dancing around on the beach. And I don't know how direct it is to surfing, but it has a sensibility around that, and it's creating some sort of a profile there. Are you really going after necessarily surfers, or probably kind of the aura or something about it in China?
No, not specifically, but you did mention a good point. It's more about, the brand is about having a Californian vibe. So it's about the feeling of like the Californian lifestyle. So it's not necessarily surfing or a specific sport. And they make that quite clear that they're not like a brand about specific sports, but they are about, I remember saying into a meeting with the CEO, it's kind of like you wear Viore when you're active and you wear Viore because you're active. So it's an active brand that people wear, not just for like working out for sports, but also kind of like for casual, just out and about as well. Like I wore this for dinner tonight. So
great. So a lot of the benefits that you provide your clients are understanding the Chinese mind, and then looking at the product and understanding what to bring to that Chinese mind to create results. And you've got the platforms to be able to do that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that's also a good point. I would say we try to localize a global proposition without changing it too much, but changing it enough so it relates natively to, like, that's actually a very fine line on how much you change and how much you adapt to retain the global proposition, but also how much you change, how much you adapt to make it so it's relevant to the local audience in China as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'll open it up for questions. And so please either raise your hand or unmute. Catherine, I know this is an area of your expertise as well. Would you like to kick us off either with a question or a comment? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm struggling
I'm sorry.
I'm struggling a little bit. There's building works going on nearby, so my internet keeps cutting out. So yeah, I'm probably not the right person to give a comment right now. But good to see you, Arnold.
Hello, good to see you.
Thanks, Catherine. What other questions do people have, please?
I have one, Doug.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing? Arnold, great to meet you. I'm Mark Cohen. I'm 40 years into doing business in China. You're spot on. We started the call today talking about how can we do business in China? What's the negatives? What's the positives? Because of this economic climate right now. And you basically pinpointed an exact area, and I shared this with everybody on the call first. This is how you can do business in China, because people are concerned, how do you do it? You're the gatekeeper for China. And so what I have the Buy Direct company that I started, 40 years ago. I sold my business to the Chinese government. I was one of the first clothing companies to sell through mainland China in the 80s through Guangzhou.
Wow.
In the Fujian province. We actually had that province where I actually sold an apparel company, because I was manufacturing for Sears, Pennies, and Montgomery Ward's on their private label and the distribution model. And then in '89, I started the Buy Direct companies in t-shirts, where I was the biggest importer of blank t-shirts in America out of Shanghai knitting mills. So what you have done, and what you're creating is that vehicle and the gatekeeper. So when we talk about, more than anything else, the compliance of the ethics of doing business in China, this is where a lot of the major companies in America are very cautious, right? So what I do is I try to connect, like with you, with the manufacturer, with the actual name brands, on how we can be the authentic connector by doing business in China. What you're doing is tremendous. I started doing this in a big way in the skincare when the pandemic started, where then we were doing with the influencers in the country and how to establish that. I just want to share everybody on the call here today that in China, they have developed almost like a QVC channel where they go in and they create the actual channel like a QVC at home shopping, and they can go in and do 30,000, 50,000 items at a time at a high ticket, and how we can do business properly. So I'm really honored to meet you, Arnold. It's a circle of life when we're supposed to meet. And I'm really grateful for the call, Doug, and how I can bring this value to everybody, because really today, what we need to do is collectively, we could all do business in the darkest time. We just need to feel out where that pin is to open up wide, and how we can do business together, right, Arnold? So it's a blessing, and I'm really grateful for the call and how I can help assist you. You can assist me. The biggest thing that I'm looking for today for humanity is I'm involved with sports, with all the athletes in the world right now with Project Max, and we're dealing with anti-Semitism, racism, and how to connect in the intolerance way of treating everybody equal, in the communication of social media, and how that message can be done properly in China, in Europe, in South America, in the world, and in the Middle East. So I'm, grateful that we need to talk more, because we're going to open up the world in the dynamics of communicating for humanity.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Any comment, Arnold?
No, just it's really great to meet you, and let's please connect on LinkedIn. It'll be great to stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug, for the platform here.
Thank you, Arnold. Bill, all of your experience in China, I know you've set up more than one franchise and other businesses. Did you want to make a comment or have a question, please?
Well, I'm always trying to learn about China, despite 40 years of going there. But Arnold, what do you think? What's your feeling about the consumer these days in China? And is it regional or is it countrywide, the challenges in consumer spending these days?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say in general, it's quite a general topic. I would say like in general, like I don't think it's I don't think it's newsflash that people are just not spending as much in China these days, because people are worried about so in China, again, you guys probably all know, old China hands, right? That China, when there's a problem, people just start saving money rather than spending. So there's a massive deflation problem right now. I'd say people are still spending, but they're very careful about what they're spending on. So those categories I mentioned, people are still spending money on. And I think anything that's kind of like, okay, so luxury brands are actually doing okay. I know their reports are not looking very good recently, but they're doing much better than other categories. And anything that's kind of like quite fast fashion. So I mentioned like female fashion, I mentioned like snacks, anything that's quite like small cost and value is doing quite well. Anything in the middle, like kind of like premium brands and premium products are doing a lot less well. Like they're probably suffering the most because people are either seeing like the value in like cheaper stuff, or people are like, okay, like luxury brands bought by like people who have a lot more money, so they're less affected by like economy problems. Anything that's kind of like premium, and I think are doing less well. But people are still spending money, and companies and brands are still making money, and a lot of companies still coming into China because we're working with them. So I think there's still an opportunity. You just got to be very careful about, depending on what category you're in and what kind of products you're selling, and be careful basically like how you go into China if you're not in China already.
Arnold, yes. is it China wide, or are some regions doing better than others?
It's a good question. We generally work a lot with tier 1 and tier 2 cities. Like that's my view of those places. So it's hard for me to kind of like comment on the other, because we work mostly with foreign brands and they tend to do better in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So it's hard for me to comment on the rest. I would say what I've just said is more tier 1 and tier 2. But I also think like what I mentioned earlier about live selling and live streaming and social media, despite us like everyone talking about social media so much, I don't think people realize how powerful social media and live selling is in China right now. Because you can talk about how important and how big and how powerful it is until you're here and you're living it and you're seeing it. You don't realize how powerful it is and how efficient it is as a marketing, selling, and advertising platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there issues or geopolitical things that are influencing the Chinese mind positively and negatively that you're using to be more successful for the companies that you're working with?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So again, I think a lot of people on this call probably already know, like there's a massive shift towards nationalism in China with consumers, with brands, from the government. There's less perception now that Chinese brands are cheap and tacky, more like people are proud to have Chinese brands because they're genuinely making some of the best products in the world, whether it's like EV or robotics or fashion. So the biggest challenges that foreign brands face now is that just being foreign and being exotic is not good enough anymore. So they actually got to produce products that are local, that are hitting the right notes, but they also have to compete with local brands who are producing better products, cheaper, and also they understand the cultures and the people a lot better than foreign brands. So one thing we're trying to do to resolve that is what we call almost like borrowed authenticity, right? So one is our 666 product that we talked about, kind of like using Chinese creators to make for us by us content. Another one is like collaborating with Chinese brands that either are in your category or outside your category to have that authenticity. So we see a lot of like food brands collaborating with like fashion brands collaborating with local food brands. We see a lot of like fashion brands also collaborating with like local any brands basically, like drinks brand. Collaboration is a powerful thing in China because there isn't this kind of perception that you can only collaborate with certain type of category if you're one category. Like people are really open to all kinds of things. So I think collaboration is a powerful tool, and I think using creators and creating authentic local content is also now a powerful tool to combat that problem of like people having maybe more of a negative perception than they were before of foreign products and brands.
To be able to get the reach into the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, you've got your office in Shanghai. Then do you have like a network or a team of members in different parts of the country? How do you stay up on what's going on in the dynamics?
It's a good question. Yeah. So I think like one thing we do a lot, I come to China a lot. This is the 4th time I'm here this year now. I normally stay for quite a while. I think I've been in China maybe like 1/3 of my time now this whole year. I think just being here on the ground and just living the life helps a lot. I think also because we have DaoInsights.com, I don't know if many people know that. It's an insights platform where we publish like Chinese case studies from different brands. We publish news every day about what's happening in the marketing, creative, and advertising space, kind of like Advertising Week, but for China. So we force ourselves to stay up to date because we create content about China and about Chinese brands, about Western brands doing things in China. We also have our fashion channels as well, where we interview where we have like street fashion interviews. So we force ourselves to have this knowledge. So when we work with clients, we are already educated, and then we're not just testing with our clients, but also working with clients helps us to, it's kind of like a take and give situation where we have to force ourselves to stay educated, stay up to date, because it's our job, and we force ourselves to do that.
Is there a perception by the Chinese consumer that you mentioned those 3 main buckets of areas, one of them being cosmetics? Is there also like Japanese cosmetics are so amazing, so they've got some sort of a global perspective where, outside of China, they have a lot of respect for either in the snack area or in cosmetics area or in the fashion area, which were the 3 that you mentioned. Is there some sort of a global perspective, or is it really just, what they like?
I think I think actually those categories specifically should do well in terms of like foreign brands coming to China, because there is a desire for like foreign snack brands, like whether it's chocolate or like biscuits and snacks and just like fast kind of like high shelf life products and snacks. Same as fashion and skincare, especially skincare beauty is like they do really well in China because there's a perception their products are better. They've been around for longer. There's more investment into research and technology. So yeah, those have a much better perception in China, and maybe that's why they're doing so well also.
Okay. Tom, I think you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Arnold. Thank you very much for your insights. This is Tom van der Hayden from S3 Group in Barcelona, Spain. I'm a little bit on the opposite side because we're more into sourcing in China for European customers. Yet, just recently I heard that one of our better customers who is in, let's say, low-cost perfumes, they are a fairly popular brand in Spain. They came up with the idea of maybe addressing the Chinese markets. From what I hear, that would maybe a bit of a hard sell, no? Because they're not in the luxury, totally the opposite. They're actually totally undercutting They're very popular here because it's really very competitively priced, and it's very well distributed in supermarkets, pharmacies. Everybody knows the brand, but it would be hard, I guess, to do a similar trick in China, I guess, no, because it sort of is maybe addressing a market segment that is where it's hard for a foreign company to come in, or am I seeing this wrong?
Sorry, did you say you're sourcing Chinese products for the West?
No, we source for them their packaging, the glass bottles and the caps and these sort of things. So we provide the sort of primary packaging. They make the perfume, they distribute, they create perfumes and all this. And it's super low cost and very popular. I know many people have tons of these bottles at home in the office because it's so cheap. So
actually, perfume is a category that I didn't mention earlier because I completely forgot about it. But I think it's actually another one with the three I mentioned. It's doing actually quite well in China at the moment as well. And it's another product, especially if it's like quite low cost, that has sold quite well on Xiaohongshu as well. So we have seen that do quite well. If it's like low cost and not in the kind of premium bracket, I think also it should be fine. It should do really well too, because like I mentioned earlier, people are either still spending on products that they deem to have value, or they're just spending crazy money on crazy luxury because it's luxury and it never sees a recession. So yeah, I think you should do really well in China actually.
Right, it's probably the ones in the middle, they're suffering more, no? So it's either very high or very low, no?
Yeah, it's like the middle class always are the ones hit, and the same as products. Like it's the mid-range pricing premium products always gets hit first as well.
Right, and Douyin, as I also thought about that immediately. Douyin probably could be a good way to push to make your name, no? I guess, no, because it's so popular, no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, good, interesting. Thank you very much. Oh no, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. If any of you else have, yes,
I have another question when you're ready.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah. So Arnold, if you had your dream list of American products, I don't want to put you on the spot. We could talk later. What are you looking for? What can we do? I mean, you're talking about chocolates. You're talking about certain things. I mean, you know, I can see China just getting M&Ms, right? You know, just getting chocolate from America in China could be huge, right? I'm just thinking of ideas as we're on this call right now, right? So just thinking of some ideas with you to how we can then facilitate, how we can have this experience. And I think it's amazing what you're doing. Because
would it generally be like a high-end luxury? I think is what Arnold. Their American products still can do well in China, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. Like we're actually starting to work with a few brands as a China distributor. So we're essentially like products from
Fiore would be one, right? Or one certainly that you're working with.
Not the ones we're working right now, but some we're talking to now.
Right.
We've built such an experience in like certain categories. We now feel confident enough to actually do those, like buy their product and become their like kind of brand owners, right? And maybe some of the stuff you used to do, Mark, as kind of like more distribution and selling with my side thing as well as part of. So like the products right now that I would love to take on, like any beauty skincare brand, I'm definitely interested in looking at.
Right.
That's brands we're talking to actually. Fashion maybe less so. Maybe it depends on outdoor is still quite powerful. Like Arc'teryx is doing incredibly well in China since they've been purchased. Like Lululemon, Fiore, they're all doing really well. So I think those brands are probably the ones I would look at first. In terms of, I think probably that's better for European brands and British brands, less American brands. I don't know. I don't know American snacks as well.
I'm just throwing that. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. One of the things that I've been dealing with the name brands for about 6 years going into China, and now with what you're saying is you want to buy and be a distributor with the products. It's a different ball game. I'm very interested in talking to you about that more because the tie-ins in China, it was like just like a tease, right? And how do you get it through the borders, and how do you get it through the channels of the government agencies and the trust level? And that's really where we're now. If you're interested in opening up and being a distributor for there, it's a different ball game right now. So I agree with you 100%.
I would, if you have experience now, I would love to talk to you.
Offline. Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, we'll do that offline. I appreciate that. Yeah.
We've come to the end, but before we finish, Arnold, if you could just mention anything that you feel like either you forgot or that you would like to mention based on these topics, or just anything, including how we can help you. You mentioned here at the end some brands and some ideas, whether it's in the UK or the US or somewhere in the world. Is there anything that we can do to help? What final comments do you have, please? Thank you so much for taking the time today. It means a lot.
For having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Any final comments? I think China is still like has a lot of opportunities. I think a lot of people see it because of the recent slowdown. People are worried about it, and I think it was, I can't remember, it was a McKinsey report. I think the China CEO said like the next China is still China. Like I agree with that. The next so I don't think people should be less bullish, but I certainly think people should be more careful on where they invest and how they invest. You can't just like throw money at China and expect an ROI anymore. You just got to be careful. I think social media is still super powerful. I think certain categories, like I said earlier, we're getting into distribution because we think the opportunity is still there for certain categories and certain products. And there's still a lot of money to be made for brands, for businesses. You just gotta be a bit more prudent, I guess.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the time. You know, as we, Global Chamber, add our Global Council in January with Dr. Cogram and our co-leader of that Global Council based in Shanghai, we look forward to the opportunity of interacting and supporting your work. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Watch for the video here of this out on the Global Chamber channel. And Arnold, continued safety and fun as you travel China. When do you get back to London?
I'm here till the 20th of November at least. So luckily I'm here for quite a while, and I'm going to enjoy that.
Very good. Are you going to be doing some traveling around the country as well?
Maybe. We've got, I might go see our client Tencent in Shenzhen, but that's probably it.
Okay. Well, enjoy the trip, continue to learn, and continue to be a leader in this area. Congratulations on your success. Thanks again for today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Arnold. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, Arnold. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.